Welcome to Behind the Thin Blue Line, a Whisper in the Shadows podcast. In each city, in every neighbourhood, on every street, they stand tall. Those in blue, guardians of our community, our protectors. But who are they really? Behind the Thin Blue Line is the podcast that takes you behind the badge, beyond the headlines, and into the hearts of those who serve and protect. We're here to break down barriers and to tear down the walls of misunderstanding. We're here to listen to their stories, their triumphs, their fears. Ever wonder what it's like serving undercover? Or what's the real-life impact of policing? Or how they cope with trauma? Listen as we step into the shoes of those who walk the thin blue line. You have heard my true stories of what it's really like to be an undercover cop. I want to give a voice to all those living amongst us, unseen and unnoticed, who have put their life on the line being a police officer. Hopefully to give you, the listener, a glimpse into something you will likely never get to experience. Uncover the complex world of law enforcement and the raw human experiences behind the badge. Join me, Jason Somerville, your host and a former police officer myself, as we navigate through these stories on Behind the Thin Blue Line. Let's go and meet our next guest. Welcome back to part 2 of this conversation with Mark Battersby. Last week, we just finishing discussing with Mark how he felt and what led to him leaving. Let's now continue that conversation as we talk about what he did after he left the police. Now, okay, so you've left, you've done your degree. Was that a walk into a new career, or were you still sort of lost and not and unsure about that identity and
I was still a bit unsure because by the time I got through that, I'd sort of recovered a lot. And of course, I'm a people person, and I'm working surrounded by, well, my wife calls them geeks, they're all technical people. And while I've got that ability, obviously, I'm good at maths or whatever, logic, they're not my people, And so I'm working through that. I did actually get work. I got work as a teacher at a TAFE. I got work as an engineer. In industrial automation. So I was, these companies were German companies making specialist sensors for industrial automation. So it was all sorts of applications.
SICK or IFM or something
Yeah,
like that?
SICK was one of them,
Yep.
And, look, it was interesting. But some of the people in management are about twice as worse as the people in management of the police force, if you can believe that.
I can.
They were tin men. They absolutely no heart at all. Nothing. And anyway, but as I'm recovering more and more, and then I sort of had another dip again. And I believe that was because really everything was unresolved. And so it seems to me, and it happened to me, got to about 50 odd, because I'm 62 now, but got to about 50 odd, and my whole system just exploded, and I ended up going into psych wards and all kinds of things through that period. But you know what? All those bags of shit are now being used to help others, and I'm working my way through a diploma in counselling. And I really enjoy the fact that I obviously work with and we help each other, other counsellors. We talk about our cases and things like that. But I have this ability to just grasp things because I've had so much experience with people. What's going on.
So you did 10 years in that electronics sort of space.
Something like that, and a few other things thrown in there.
And then you've had, pardon me, the unresolved PTSD come up, and that's given you now. I don't know whether you want to go into that in a little more detail or not, or we just move on from that. It's up to you whether you want to.
I can. It's I just move through it on the day and see how we go. What usually happens? Yeah, look, there's some things that I would like the 2-year-old girl. I mean, I can talk about it, but I'll start crying, and
it's entirely. Look, one of the questions towards the end.
Well, that's that. But the other things, when you're talking about your life threatened and that, well, as I was talking about before, I can do that.
I'll give you an opportunity to talk about stories of it. I guess what I wanted to talk about was that period you said where it all fell apart again. what period did that take for you to come out of that sort of trough?
Sorry, what was the last bit you said?
What? How long did it take you? You said in about your 50s, that sort of all.
Yeah, how long? Well, I
all blew up.
suppose if
How
you
long
looked
did it
at
take
how
you?
long, probably a journey. Like it's an ongoing journey.
Oh, I know, I realise that, but to get back to the point where you're sort of like working again, etc.
Yeah, well, then after that, as I said, 50 or so, something like that, when I was 50 or so. So, yeah, it all blew up, and I was probably on the back of the trigger. Was probably effectively I was sacked from this from a company I was working for, and it seemed to be a setup and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, that triggered me into my worth and ID and all that sort of stuff, self worth. I thought, well, I remember actually going home. Oh, that was that was before. I wasn't actually sacked at that stage, but we're on the way. That's what they were trying to do. And I just walked into my lounge room. No one was home, and I just bawled my eyes out.
Yep.
I thought, I can't do this anymore. This is so unfair, and I need help.
And you're not the only person that's done that, because I'm 54, and I've got to say, in the last couple of years, similar sorts of things, and I've done exactly the same.
Yeah, look, I'm not ashamed of crying or whatever, but anyway, sometimes some people don't want to go into that space, but it is an important part of the recovery. But anyway,
it is, and I guess my point is that it's not just you. I've been there.
Yeah, I understand that.
And for people listening to this and watching this, they need to understand that there are other people that are in that space. So if they're in that space, they're not alone. It's not just them.
No, so what we're hoping for is it's not really diverting, but going into the recovery and the help and supports. I want to be one of the people that an ex-copper or even a serving copper can say, let's ring Mark, because he's been through a lot of this and he knows what to do. I'm a trained counsellor, I'm developing that. Because if you ask me,
when did you get into that then? So when did you get into that counselling from?
This is only in the last 12 months. So I've just not long completed all the theory, and I'm at a counselling practice. In a group of other, we call ourselves provisional counsellors, and it's almost like going to academy. It's really great. It's, we can, we have meetings where we can talk to about our cases, and with our, supervisor. This woman's just, fantastic. She really is. She's got a real thing about training people. So a trainer that's not just ticking the box. She wants to
does she have an emergency services background? Or a
not really, but she does do some work. She does some speaking, and she's a keynote speaker as well. So she does some speaking with the Victoria Police, because it's interesting, isn't it? They've obviously recognised they have to do something, but unfortunately, most of the people in management are still going, "Oh, we'll give them this like lip service and see if that makes them happy." And I know that sounds, but that's my take on it all.
Do you know
not
why?
What you really.
Do you know why? So I don't know. I don't know how much you know about rugby league, being an AFL state.
Not really.
In the rugby league, so there's the CTE, the brain disease, which comes from being repeatedly hit in the head. Right. It's big in AFL as well, but in the NRL, they've got to the point now where you're playing a physical game where if you even look like you've been hit in the head, they're penalising it. The reaction to that is that reaction has come about because for so long they haven't done anything, and now they've gone the complete opposite direction in regards to it, and they've diluted what it is. And I think the police at the moment is at that tipping point of, well, we've got to say the right things, because if they were to go the next step, then the people who would sue and all those sorts of things becomes unsustainable. And people wouldn't be police officers anymore, because...
Well, I don't recommend anybody do it, quite frankly.
I do have a question.
I've been through.
Well, I was going to ask that. One of the questions I was going to ask is, would you recommend someone come to you and said, "I want to be a police officer"? Would you recommend it?
Well, the first question I'd ask them is why.
Right.
So I had my counselling hat on, and I wouldn't put my, what I think on them. Although I used to when I was sort of quite unhappy with them. But, I'd just say, are you aware, of the dangers and the impacts to, there are, most police end up with PTSD.
Yep.
And are you aware of that? Is that something you're willing to sacrifice and all that sort of stuff? So that's what I do. But I mean, if you want to know what it was, not that well, it's a little while ago now, but it was, do you want your life fucked in 1 year or 2 years?
Good point.
Yeah. But anyway, so we're talking about, recovery.
Yep.
And, well, at least how I recovered.
Yeah.
So eventually, in about 2014, I think, as I say, about 10 years ago now, I was in so I'd been seeing counsellors or whatever to no avail,
Yep.
psychologists or whatever, in a psych ward, and I'd been violently arrested by the police a couple of times. They come to my home, and even my wife would say no, she was concerned, but she didn't. She thought it was an overreaction. But in talking to them, and this is perhaps where reflection where the police force has got to on the type of people. They'd say things like, and I think I was arrested illegally actually under the Mental Health Act, but they'd say things like, well, Mark's a fairly big bloke, he's an ex-copper from back in the 80s, and if he goes off, he'll destroy half the suburb. He's a threat to everyone, but it was all potential,
Yeah.
And I am, I'm old school, I'm pretty fearsome when I get going. If I want to, make my point at somebody,
do you use your police voice?
Absolutely.
I get in trouble so often. It's like, don't yell. So I'm not yelling. I'm just making my police voice. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, look, humour can get around it as well, and I use a lot of humour with my wife. It's only my wife and I at home now, and I'll sometimes just joke around with it. I should arrest her and take her to bed and things like that. She doesn't mind that. She doesn't mind that.
No, that's good.
This is not what I was going to say. No, I can't think of the rating. This is not a kids only hour, is it?
No. This is an 18 plus. It's all good.
I didn't think so.
It's all good. Okay, so you were talking. You've been arrested. You've had all these things happen.
Yeah, but I did want to take that up where I was. So I was sitting in the psych ward, and I was effectively waiting to die. I sort of knew that, when things aren't good, and I couldn't eat. I hadn't eaten for quite a while, so I was half my body weight, and I was catatonic, I think the word they used. So I was shaking, and I couldn't get a cognitive thought. And this is the spiritual side that comes with me. I asked God for help, and I said, "You've got to help me," And so after a few days, I wouldn't say I was 100%, but I was on the way. I was talking, I was walking around. The staff was frightened the shit out of them because last time they saw me, I was very different. And so I'd say, through, I can talk more about what happened and the other keys, I think, to my recovery. But definitely leaning into a loving and graceful God that I knew had my back, and that I could lean into him, and he was going to help me recover. And I wanted to recover, so doing a lot of talk like we're doing now. So I couldn't find anyone to talk to. I know that's unbelievable, but, I had psychologists, they'd run out of the room and all that. And, now on reflection, I can see that, these are people that, they're very young. They go to university and they become a practitioner in their profession. They've been nowhere near where I've been in life. And I'd be letting it all out. There's blood pissing everywhere, and there was fucking 3 kids in this bloody car one night at 4 o'clock in the morning. They're all dead, and trying to talk about how I feel.
Yeah,
I hadn't even talked about how I feel yet, so I locked myself up almost, literally in our upper room or upper study here at home, and because one morning, I got out of hospital, and I just woke up about 4 in the morning, bawling my eyes out again. And I thought, right, that's it. And so I started to frame it as grief. So, grief has 5 stages.
Yep.
And I had to go through them. And there was no way around that. And so that's what I did. And continued to do that with probably my 3 or 4 main things. A couple of them I mentioned before. Until I described the sting went out of them. And now I kind of describe it like I've got little windows in the back of my head or somewhere where I can, it's not like I've completely forgotten. Like we've done today, I can open up and we can explore, fatality or when, this fella tried to kill me and blah, blah, blah. But I'll put the windows back on. I'll go and have dinner later or whatever and watch some TV and go to bed and have a nice sleep. Now, sometimes, maybe after this, I'm sort of expecting there might be a few troubles, because this is a real focus on me and going through the whole thing, and But look, I'm willing to do it because I know that it's not only
you have people you can lean on if this conversation is a trigger.
Well, I do. Yeah. I mean, that's my wife, who's pretty good actually, considering. But there are, if I need to go to counselling, guess what? I know a few counsellors. So, and for me, I've been part of my recovery again has been to get sober from alcohol. So I've been sober now for 7.5 years. So it's not an option to drink. Not an option to drink. I know that just doesn't do me any good. So yeah, it's been.
How did you get to the counselling side of things then? So that because you said 2014, that's what 9-10 years ago. In that meantime, were you working? What happened there, and how did you get to this point?
It's hard. I did work, and it's hard to remember sort of the timelines. But for a while there, I just people sort of said, "Look," and my wife said, "Just do some meaning or whatever you want to do,"
Yep.
And excuse me. So for a while there, I worked in traffic management, if you know what that is.
Yep.
Yeah. Stop, go, bat, and just
I've worked in traffic management as well.
So, and after a while, I found that my intelligence and all that was too high. So they just wanted some. They didn't want you to think too much about it.
No.
Because I'd be. I was quite experienced in the end, so I could go up and set up sites and all that sort of stuff. But as far as interacting with clients, they just go, because we're dealing in construction most of the time. Mate, I just want you to stand there. And I go, hang on a minute, you can't tell me how to do my job. So I was getting into, the old Mark was coming back a bit. I could think, I could stand up.
Which is the identity side of things.
It's the identity, yeah. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be good for them to have an ex-copper doing this sort of job? But most of them didn't see it that way.
No.
So anyway, that was there. But I also upgraded a certificate in training and assessment I have. So I've got the current training and assessment, which is pretty handy. It's pretty long-winded, actually, because it's almost diploma level now, the work that's required. But anyway, so I've got that, and I taught mainly first aid as well, sort of in amongst the traffic management, or I think towards the end, I was doing that almost full time because they were sending me everywhere, all over Melbourne, Victoria, because I thought, he's pretty good. But this is another thing that happened with that. This is, for the audience at home, this is coppers. I don't know. Well, I like to think. Well, I'll put it in the best light. Like, we're very intelligent human beings, and we can really work with with a fluid environment and under stress. So, my boss actually said at this company, which was Australia wide, they said, "Well, you've had a lot of experience. We don't normally get trainers that have actually done so much first aid." Anyway, I had this wonderful idea that training should be as hands-on as you can. So I'd run role plays, and I'd be like in the role play, and I'd play someone drunk coming down the road, and abusing the people doing the first aid, like the students. Anyway, some of the young ones, they couldn't. They couldn't see the difference between when I was a trainer. It's unbelievable to me. That's what. So
I'm with you. I'm right there with you.
But I'm just telling, this is interesting, from what, I think we have to, well, I'll just finish this off. So anyway, my boss rang me, I'm getting complaints from, these young people. And I said, well, what do you want me to do? And I told her what I was doing. And she went, look, just wrap them up in cotton wool. So I said, well, on Monday, you can wrap my resignation up in cotton wool. So I didn't need to do that, but I reacted,
Yeah, no, I and every time you talk, and I'm going to make the assumption that anyone listening to this that has been in a first responder role, whether it predominantly police, but fireys, ambos, whatever, are going to be sitting there nodding their head going, shit, yeah, that's happened to me as well, because I see exactly the same thing where I've done exactly the
So in a
same
lot of
thing.
ways, we're too incompetent, but also, not incompetent, we're too competent is what I meant to say. But also, we somehow, and I'm sort of even looking at this now, I won't say this in the right words, but, lose the ability to know that you've got to go through the chain of command. Like I just said, well, I'm going to make these role plays up, right? Which weren't in the original script for the training program, but I thought, what a great idea. I'll just do it. What I should have done was
but
talk to my boss first.
You spend that formative period of your working life in a role where you have the ability to make decisions that have far more consequence than the decisions you're making now. And it doesn't click with you that something that minor needs to be run through the thing, because it never did in your formative working life.
Having said that, I don't want to really go much into how it changed and all that, but in the last few years, and that was another stress, I think, you know how things happen and you don't realise it's putting stress upon stress, but well, I remember this one, and this is what was happening. And so I'm out on the van, senior Connie, by that stage, 12, 13 years experience or whatever. And I'm called, but, we knew who the crook was. It was just a willful damage or something. And so I'm going, yeah, we'll go around and get him, do this. And we get a call back, and there's a sergeant appeared from somewhere. I hadn't really seen him at my station before. And he says, oh, no, I've reviewed what's happening with you there. This is what we're going to do. Like he's telling me how to do my job that I've been doing for. So obviously this was part of what was happening. This control thing was going on, so they could get to the point where, we don't want anybody thinking for themselves. However, what's the conundrum with that is that so you're stuck in a situation where you can't go back to the station and talk about what you're going to do, which happens quite frequently. I don't want to say what's going on now. I'm glad I'm not there. That's all I can say.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. But I also think that for people of our experience, and anyone listening that's in that like 70s, 80s, 90s vintage of policing, because it's not that way now, and private enterprise is that way, we're handicapped. We've got one hand tied behind our back because the way our work life was fomented is so different to what happens in the real world. The police are there now, but we've been trained that way that we don't see it, if that makes sense. So we don't see the need for it for the way that the corporate world does it now in regards to that. Everything needs to go through.
We probably, in essence, because of who we are and where we've been, we don't fit into the corporate world.
No.
Because they'll do anything to go up the ladder and get more money. That's what it's all about.
This is very true. Okay, I want to touch on how you got into with this group and talk more about the group and who they are, and we'll put all the details in the information about the podcast if there's contact details and that sort of stuff if the group's open to that. But how did you get involved with that, and how did you get into the counselling part?
Right. Well, the group that meet, they're two separate things, although it looks like there's going to be some crossover happening as we go along. We're just starting to talk about that, but that's in the early stages. So it was only a few months ago. I don't know. How did I get? Perhaps I saw. I think I saw something on a group I'm in on Facebook.
Yep.
And anyway, you'll know what this means. The group's called TJF.
Yeah, right? I think anyone listening will know what that is. Yes,
but they've called very clever. They've called it's actually the journey forward. It's not what you think.
No,
but it is.
that's a very good reframe. Yes.
Yeah, that's what they've done because apparently these two guys that started the management of the Victoria Police came after them, and of course have no control or nothing to do with them, of course. Yep. But that's what they do anyway. So that's once a fortnight. In fact, we're meeting this Friday, and at 10 a.m. we're all going to the Morty Bowls Club, and we're going to have a bit of a bowl and a bit of a laugh and a giggle and a talk and that sort of thing. So we don't always do activities like that. Sometimes we're just, sitting around a table and having a talk.
Yep.
And we realise, that's what I'm just talking to some people at my counselling work, or the woman there that's the supervisor, or the CEO basically of the company. Yep. And she said, look, she's heard a few stories, and she said, look, I think someone needs some group moderator training, because it can get a bit out of control.
Yeah,
we're all triggering each other and stuff, and you don't even realise it until it happens.
Yep.
And then somebody's pretty upset and not well, all that sort of thing. So we don't want that to happen. We want us, to all be supported. So anyway, that's what happens once a fortnight, and it's.
If anyone's listening to this, do they take people to come and join, or is it
Of course, we're hoping that we'll grow it into more groups, basically all over the country.
Is there a Facebook page or something or other that they use?
Sorry,
is there a Facebook
page?
Yeah,
there might be a Facebook page. There's definitely a website. So if you put in TJF, it should come up.
All right, we'll grab the website details and I'll put it in the comment part of this. No, so if people are interested, and we might be able to start nationalising it. Is that the right word? Making it into a nationwide group. So how did you get into the counselling then? So the counselling was obviously before you became involved with this group.
Yeah. So look, I was really. My wife said, well, oh, that's right. I was put on work cover after all that time. Would you believe? I resubmitted that, and
from the police.
Yeah. And it was accepted. So I'm on a nice payment every week, which helps. But so anyway, my wife said, look, you better, do whatever you want to do. Whatever you think you should do. And look, I'm a man that's still. I know that you could be at 62. You could say, well, I'll just do nothing and go and play golf. But I'm not like that. So, I really do want to help. And I thought, help others. And so I thought, well, what a great way to do it. So I just investigated. And, well, I'd already, spoken to plenty of councils and that. And I thought, I reckon I could do a pretty good deal of this. And particularly I'll help anybody, but a particular focus on ex-police and paramedics and others that are suffering. Yep. So there's nothing like talking to someone that's from your environment. Because often I've had discussions before, and I think that happened to me as well. You'd have counsellors or psychologists or whatever. They spend an awful lot of time picking your brains because they just wanted to know what it was like to be a copper. They didn't really have much to offer you in. All that stuff I've been through, I discussed before. That's all on offer to recover. And then, of course, the strength of the recovery is in working towards, what you can go on to.
Yep.
Because of recovery, you can, and where I was, so you can recover to an extent where you can go on with life and function and have a good life. That's what I want. That's what I want for anyone,
This is true. In regards to with the counselling, I just wanted to make a point because we were talking about how you spoke to a lot of psychologists who were just out of university and they didn't understand that sort of stuff. One of the advice that I was given is to find someone who, one, was older, and two, who had a very good understanding of first responders. Because that way they could then frame all the stuff that they need to talk about in language that you understand, and they would understand it as well. Now, in regards to your counselling service that you work for, do you want to give that a plug here? So if people need to are looking for someone to think they can contact either yourself or whatever you want.
Might be of help, yeah. So, it's called Redefine Life.
Yep.
Redefine Life. There should be there is a website.
Well, again, we'll put those details in
redefinelife.com.au. I think that's basically it.
So Redefine Life.
I'm just reading from a card here.
That's okay. Adelaide. So we'll put those details in there as well. And if anyone feels that they would benefit from talking to
and I'm happy
organisation Mark's
to.
with, then
I'm happy to give my phone number across if that's there might be something they can use
mate,
it for.
that's entirely up to you. It's your platform. You
Well, it
you
just
give the
makes it
information
easier,
you
I
want.
think.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big IT man. I know how to use it, but to me, it just gets in the way of a good time. So 0400 212 284. And certainly, if I can't help, then someone else will be able to
Put you in touch with someone
help.
who can.
But seriously, I don't. Well, there's not a lot. There are others, but there's probably not a lot that are really got that are ex-coppers that have got a real focus on that profession, I guess.
Yep. Not a problem.
And
Again, we'll put those details in the comments there.
sure,
So if your phone goes off, don't blame me.
yeah, right. No.
Um,
So look, it's it's great. It's a lot of fun actually because even though there's some heavy weather when people are right in the thick of it,
yep.
I just sort of think I'm doing this is what I needed when I was going through it. An ex-copper
Yeah.
that knew his stuff, that had some counselling, training and all the rest of it to really and often it's just being able to bear with people, hold space, as they say.
Yep.
Because when you're going through some heavy shit, some people just go, "Fuck, I can't do this," and that's
Yep.
okay because we're all different, I don't want to go
Very
and
true.
lay bricks. The bricklayer probably doesn't want to come and do what I'm doing, so that's all right.
I'm no good at. My brother and father were both tradies, and the only thing I
Yeah.
hit with a hammer is my thumb. Um, Now,
Mm.
one of the things that we spoke about earlier
Mm.
was talking about if someone came to you and said, "I want to be a police officer." What do you wish you knew then when you joined the police that you know now?
Ooh, probably a little bit more about what it was really all about.
Do you think that would have
Yeah.
stopped you from joining?
Oh, no, probably not. But I think that I was just I was playing footy with these blokes. I got on well with most of them.
Hmm.
So similar sort of blokes. So they were talking about they weren't talking about fatalities, obviously, or anything. Although they would have been there, they were just talking about camaraderie mostly.
Yep.
So I've heard other people say the same thing, and that's my experience. That when I went to work with the coppers, it was just like the footy club,
Yep.
just an extension of the footy club, really.
Yep.
And so that was a good feeling. But
So, what do you think the biggest myth is about policing?
the myth,
Yeah, that people have.
I think there really any myths. I mean, as a young fellow, my memory was, I was after action. I wasn't going to listen to anybody that said that there was a nasty side to it. Just having a go on 19.
Fair enough.
So
Now,
from that point of view,
I asked you the question of what advice would you give someone who
mm,
was thinking of joining the police.
mm,
Your response was don't. Um,
yeah.
what? Let's say someone really was wanting to do it. Uh,
Mm.
what what type of person do you think needs to be a police officer? What
Well,
type of person do you think would
what
be
I
best?
think and what the police force think now might be two different things, but
Yeah, but this isn't a podcast for the police force.
no. Well, look, I don't really know anymore. I can, well, from my experience, um, and this is what it's going to go real. It's going to look like I'm a dinosaur, but I think they had it right when they had a policewoman division. So we don't want policewomen out in the general duties and all that, on the front
Yep.
line. So young, strong men, or just even older ones, but people going in, young, strong men that because that's what a lot of the time it is. I mean, there is smarts involved, but a lot of the time that's why they used to hire us like that
Yep.
because the older fellas are getting older and less fit, and that's why they concentrate so much on the fitness in the academy. We've got to get out there and grab the crooks and everyone before and keep the place safe.
Fair
It's
enough.
hardly going to be safe with a whole heap of big fat men going around, is it? Can't even
This is
dropping
very
dead through cholesterol.
this is very true. All right, look, I guess the last question
Yeah.
that I always ask is,
Mm.
and it's not really a question. It's more like the last word. I'll leave the last word to you to say
Mm.
whatever it is you want in regards to policing your journey, anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I think that under the current regime, anyway, that you're going to have, unless you're one that for some reason isn't going to be affected, but you will. And so, how are you going to deal with that? You're talking. I don't know whether you're talking about entering or whatever, but just generally, it's going to affect your mental health. All the shift work and everything is going to be really difficult for your family. It's okay for a single person. Once you get a family and everything, um, is that something you want for your family? It's okay to say that you want to go out and it's a noble profession. There's no doubt about that. I mean, the people like myself and you and all those that have basically sacrificed themselves for the cause is very noble. But until, let's put it this way, until the police force itself has a way of supporting us in that, then I'd say it's untenable, to be quite honest. Um, it's almost like some of my thoughts are police should be like military in a way. We should have tours. I know they get leave and all that, but
Yep.
it is so exhausting, particularly some of these heavier jobs that.
Do you think mandatory leave is something that should be put in place that say after 8 months, that's it, you're taking 4 weeks off?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. But with that, obviously people have got to have, their holidays and family and whatever, perhaps they do. Well, something that doesn't even affect that outside of that, you go for a week, just mandatory, a week at a retreat somewhere,
Yep. Yeah.
And let's really, with people like me, let's really talk about what's going on,
Yep.
And, really let's bust it down to, what's going on because, it's what I'm most concerned about, and this is what makes me a good counsellor, I think, is that I'm most concerned about the individual. I really couldn't give a fuck about the police force or any other institution. Yeah. It's the person. I mean, look at me. I'm going on 18 years. I haven't seen my kids. Now that's a pretty severe outcome from the. And I'd say it was a lot of the job.
Yep.
What they experienced and what their dad ended up being. So until they've got a proper plan in place about what they're doing about those things, stay away. And all I want to do is just see people recover. And at these meetings we have every fortnight, we just get more and more come because people are becoming more aware because they're put on sick leave, things like that, and they're sitting at home. What do? There's no recovery plan. So they can come to us, and we're working on it. It's a work in progress because a lot of us have just sort of only got some recovery and sort of saying, righto, this is what we did. What can we do? So in other words, it's not a like plug in at A and come out at Z. Certainly not at the moment, anyway.
No. So, I guess there's sort of something else now that's just popped in my mind. We were talking about, don't join the police. If someone is still hell bent on joining the police, what advice would you give them to keep their I was going to say sanity, but that's not the right word. To keep their mental health, mental health healthy. What would you say to them that they should be doing? Taking a week off now and then, but
that sort of thing. I think that people would say, exercise, healthy exercise, all that. Don't drink.
Yep.
Most people are going to go, yeah, right. Well, I drink. But really, that's to me, they're the lightweight things. They're good things to do.
Yep.
But there's something more that happens.
What about having someone to talk to? Putting that in place at a very early stage of your career.
Yeah, well, I believe that some of the things I was involved in, and probably I wouldn't be the only one. That it wasn't a mental thing particularly. I had a broken spirit.
Yep.
I'm dragging around, involved in death and mayhem every week, and thinking I can't cope with this. But I wouldn't have been able to put that together.
Yep.
Because my superiors or whatever, the job just said, "Well, drink more piss," and then if you're not too good, drink more piss, and
drink more piss. Yeah. All right. Look, what I'll do.
Don't do that.
No. Yeah. Mark, I'll leave it there. Look, thank you very much. I really appreciate you giving me the time to have this conversation and for going through some of those things that you've spoken about. I appreciate the impact that it could very well have on you. To everyone else who has been listening, Mark's details, the details of his support, or the support group that he belongs to will be in the link provided. And thank you for listening for Behind the Thin Blue Line. If you're a current or past police officer and you'd like to tell your story, just as Mark has, or talk about what you do, then please email me at whisperintheshadowspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you very much, and we will catch you all next time. Thank you for joining me on Behind the Thin Blue Line, where I have conversations with current and former police officers and they get to tell their stories. I hope you've enjoyed that episode. In the next episode, we'll again explore the human side of policing through more conversations with police officers from around the world. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Lastly, if you're a current or former police officer, I would love to chat to you about your experiences, or if you're feeling dangerous, tell your stories on my podcast. Please get in contact by my email, which is whisperintheshadowspodcast@gmail.com. I look forward to you joining me next week.